Welcome to Practice Disrupted, a podcast where we find ways to create new solutions to current challenges while elevating the value of architects. I'm your host, Evelyn Lee, an architect who spans tech as an angel investor, startup advisor, and founder of Practice of Architecture. Whether you're a seasoned architect or just starting in the field, this podcast is your gateway to think differently about the role architects play within our global community. Hello, Disruptors. Welcome to this week's episode of Practice Disrupted. Today, we're bringing back the founders of Slantis, Andy Robert and Mercedes Carriquiry, to talk about the skills everyone needs to be successful within a technology-driven future. Andy is a professional architect from ORT University in Uruguay. She lived in Germany and pursued graduate studies in Dessau, where the former Bauhaus is located. Today, she is the CEO of Slantis, which she co-founded in 2016 with her lifelong friend, Mare. And as you will see, they are both willing to disrupt the way we practice architecture. Andy is energetic, curious, and entrepreneurial, and is actively involved in events that advocate for women as leaders. She's Beltran and Jaime's mom, a vegan, and a lifelong learner. Mare is Andy's co-founder, leading innovation operations and strategy at Slantis. Mare is a licensed architect and entrepreneur specializing in innovation and technology. She received her degree from the Faculty of Architecture Oudelarth in Uruguay and also studied at ENSAG in Grenoble, France. She also has a background in digital fabrication from MIT's Fab Academy. Prior to founding Slantis, she worked at Jean Nouvel's studio in Paris and led multiple developments in Montevideo. When she's not working, she enjoys art, skating, and spending time with her family. Thank you so much, Andy and Mare, for being here. You guys always make my day whenever I get to spend any time for you because of the positive energy that you bring to the conversation or just to the environment we're in. So thank you again for joining us on Practice Disrupted. It's so great to have you here.
Woo-hoo! We're super happy to be here.
You make our day too, so it's mutual. Thanks for having us.
Oh, so we opened with your formal bios, but is there anything else that you can share maybe as by way of icebreaker to kind of introduce our audience to your voices, but also just maybe we'll learn a little bit something more about either one of you too?
I don't know. Maybe a fun fact few people know is I started windsurfing a month ago.
Oh,
that's new.
Are you really enjoying it?
Definitely. Yeah. It's good to keep up the new flavors and face new challenges. So I kind of train myself to do that right now with windsurf.
I can add to what Mare said that she's really, really good with extreme sports. So she's probably doing really good. She also skates and snowboards. About me, I also enjoy extreme sports, but not windsurfing. No, something that I would add is through my entrepreneurial journey, I started being obsessed with reading and I started being like kind of a bookworm, and I set myself a goal of reading 30 books a year. So that brings about 3 books a month, more or less. And I've been keeping up that for the past 2 years, and I'm on track this year. Now again, I love reading, so everybody that has recommendations for cool books about businesses, bios, or something about habits or improving your life for the better, I'm really intrigued on listening recommendations.
Amazing. I feel like we should put some of your recommendations down in the show notes. For our listeners who have never heard of Slantis, can you tell us a little bit about Slantis and just the overall mission and vision you two have for the company?
For vision, we started out as a typical outsourcing company and then rapidly migrated into how we can create impact leveraging technology for architecture project delivery. So what our vision is to kind of change the way the AEC industry is working and how the architecture profession is being developed through technology.
Yeah, we want to change the AEC for the better. So our mission is revolutionize the AEC through technology. And something really important about us is that we're not an architecture firm. We're a technology company working for architecture.
How did you guys come to, so I know we delved into this a little bit, but just from your perspective and for the conversation going forward, and Mare, because you called it out so specifically, you're a technology firm working and supporting architects. Why decide to take that role on specifically rather than start your own firm together?
The path, like now looking back, it all came out pretty naturally and gradually. So the first thing is that we decided very early on that we wanted to work remotely. This was before 2020. And the root reason there was because we live in Uruguay, which is a very, very small country, only with 3 million people. And we both lived abroad and we both have been connected like through the world. And that's one thing. And the other thing, it's because we see technology as an enabler of better architecture and better buildings. So we both really like design. We both really like art. So it's not we're in the technology realm because we're not into the design realm. It's we're in the technology realm because we believe that can make more room for better design and better buildings. So I get really mad when people call us a firm and not a technology company, because we're a technology company for architecture firms to be better. We believe the impact is bigger.
And I would add, and this was through a recent conversation that we had, at some point we realized that the impact was so much bigger because we're dealing with a shift in the paradigm of mindset and how architecture has been conceived up to this point, and how we need to change our mindsets in order to embrace technology. And that is a much bigger impact than the tool itself or just technology by itself, but rather figuring out how to reshape how we're doing architecture.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, honestly, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring the two of you back on is because of this space that you're operating in relative to technology and architecture. You were last on in 2022, and we've seen such a huge shift in kind of the adoption of AI and a lot of questions about where AI is headed relative to architecture. So, how, even in the last year, have you guys pivoted your offerings in response to some of the changes that you're seeing in the industry? And maybe a second follow-up conversation to that is, how have your conversations with current or potential clients shifted as well?
So we recently were invited to give a talk at the Large Firm Roundtable CIO group in March, and we were asked the same question. Actually, they asked us to create a talk to discuss exactly what you're asking. And our answer to that was, I think at some point we first need to figure out what is not going to change and emphasize on that and focus on that, and then figure out what is going to change. Because what we've been seeing for the past probably 20 years is that things that have been changing had been very slowly being adopted, or it takes time for things to be adopted. And AI and generative AI has recently burst last year. So it takes a while, and I believe that we are still trying to catch up in some of the other things that appeared early 2000s. So we had a conversation on, there are some things that are not going to change, and what we believe is the human capacity to collaborate and cooperate, and how we connect to each other and how we relate to each other and how we better and more efficiently collaborate between each other. And the tools are just a middleman, let's say, just the enabler, as Mare said. But people behind tools and even AI are what really is at the center of the conversation for us.
And something we were just discussing is that our offerings haven't really changed or fairly remained the same, which shows that somehow we've been ahead and our offerings can cover the current needs and the previous needs. What we have seen change, though, is more clients, more architecture firms, or just technology clients start to be more interested in systems, processes, and workflows. So what has changed is the industry interest, if you will, towards systems that are more generic and focus on the firm and not really on the project. So if you take AI, for example, right now, the impact on it, it's very on very small stages and, let's say, design phases of what we see of at the end-to-end process. So it's fairly located at the beginning of an architecture project development, or more in silo tasks, but not in the end-to-end process. What we've seen is people start to be more interested in what we have to offer on the consulting side, and on how to develop a system that works for all projects, and not only help us produce on this project because we're in a crunch, but help us to understand what we can harvest from this project and apply it through all our process in general. So there was more a shift in interest from our clients and from the industry, rather than in our offerings itself.
And also, adding to what Mare was saying, and also through the conversation that we recently had at the CIO group, we were discussing how those leaders or CIOs or CTOs were usually kind of not at the center of the conversation, and now it started to shift their roles into a more critical role inside architectural firms. Before, they were mainly the people that allow licenses to be up and running, or troubleshooting. But now it's more from a strategic angle and figuring out how to really use technology to better produce architecture and in the end deliver it.
Andy, you mentioned a little bit about us being behind. Even things from the early 2000s we haven't necessarily adopted. I've often kind of joked about how there's architecture firms that have Revit but still use it like CAD as a for instance. What are other examples that you can give of things that architecture firms really should be doing to catch up so they can make better use of the technology that they probably already subscribe to?
So we always talk about culture, and culture being, or organizational culture being, the mindset enabler. We are using a lot that word, but it actually is like, if you put people in the right mindset, then people will be open to using differently the tools and understanding how to better collaborate or what to ask from their peers. I think traditionally our profession is really siloed, even within firms. So I would say that the first lesson learned from being more of on the tech end is being a bit more open source and being a bit more open in sharing what everyone knows, so everybody can learn from their own lessons learned and from others. So I would say that that's part of the critical thing that it's being left behind. Like architectural firms usually, or what we've seen is, culture is really part of their HR policies, but it's not at the center. And to be really tech driven and being really innovative in how you approach problems, and this is from architecture to any sort of problem, you need a culture and a pool of talent that is up to the challenge. And for that requires a lot of work internally to produce that culture to be on the right mindset. So what we are seeing is the architecture profession being a bit behind on just cultural policies that promote innovation, I would say.
Yeah, that for sure. And then, like, how architecture firms organize, it's very old fashioned, let's say, and does not really enable collaboration and interactions as they are needed throughout a project. So organizational systems within firms is a big thing to address. And then there's also what Andy was mentioning about technology, let's say philosophies, not only on the open source side, but I would take documenting. I think something we've done really good and see the value right now, because we've been running for 8 years, is document what you know and improve it as you improve what you know. So knowledge management in an architecture firm is incredibly important and touches not only the projects and the project components, but everything within the firm, like from the operations to the projects to the onboarding of people to pretty much how you make sure your organization is learning as you keep producing projects, and how everybody is also learning within that context.
Yes, and usually it's more focused on the delivery rather than the learning, and the learning brings excellent delivery in the end. So
I almost want you to kind of walk us through what a client interaction then looks like for you guys, because, Mayor opened up very strongly, first and foremost, saying that you're a technology company. And both of you kind of just touched on how, in order to enable this technology correctly, it's really about culture and mindset and operations and systems that you have set up in the firm, which are not necessarily, they're technology enabled, but not necessarily like technology driven. Like, these are all things that an architecture firm could have independent, or probably should have independent of like even how they're using their technology. So then what does kind of a client engagement look like for you when you realize that you are faced with a culture that's not going to be able to even fully leverage your services because of how the firm is run operationally?
You spot on the right challenge. What we've seen is it's easier, not easy, but easier to change a culture from the inside than from the outside. So what we've learned teaming up with clients that maybe have a very different way of organizing and practices that are far from the technology practices we embrace and use is that working as an extended team and joining their team fully from the inside, we start to, let's say, produce changes in workflows and systems. And it's pretty rewarding to see how some of our rituals get embedded into another company's culture, because it does produce better projects and better collaboration. So to answer your question more specifically is it takes time, because you gotta have the whole team on board in order to have culture. So it's not a pretty list of things you like people to do listed on a website or on an office. But what we've seen is like even for those firms that have very different policies or different systems, or sometimes even rigid systems, is that if those systems don't work, then people are open to change. And the good thing here is that usually when systems are inflexible enough, people know they don't work, even if they don't want to change those. So that's our open door or open window. That's our crack.
Do you usually find that you're inserted then into like one specific project, and then as you work with that client over time, your team begins working with more projects across the spectrum?
yes, and something that we recently got from one of our clients, this is feedback from one of our clients, and it was really fun to hear, was that Slantis operates internally as the Switzerland of Revit, meaning that even inside the firms, there are a lot of disagreements on how to properly use technology. So we come in as this neutral sound voice of knowledge on things that we already seen with other clients that really work, and we're always suggesting ways of doing things better. So the idea of us being the Switzerland is kind of interesting, because even firms that really leverage technology, sometimes with a people perspective, they don't agree on the best processes and systems. So there is a human component there of being in the middle, or just negotiating what are the best practices and then applying them.
That's one of the best compliments we've ever received.
Yes.
Because like in the era of information in which you get bombarded with the 3 best tips or full of recipes, and you really get forced to like just follow 3 steps without critically thinking if those are the right steps. For us, like being able to leverage different options within a tool or within whatever, and having that critical spirit, which is something that will not change, not even with AI, was really good.
This conversation has actually taken a unique turn, because I thought we would be honestly firmly on the technology side, but now we're talking about a lot of people and culture and integration and mindset. I mean, that puts your people in a very unique position, but I also feel like you have to train your people differently to operate in that space within a firm. Because being Switzerland incorporates a lot more, I would say, soft skills than just having like just being a CAD drafter. So what does professional development look like at Slantis, and how do you find people like that can operate in those type of situations?
So our key focus is collaboration and everything that implies collaboration. So from communication and training people, the people that we work with are Native American speakers, but most of our team are Spanish speakers as a first language. So these are really smart people that are working in a second language technically. So communication wise, it's critical to teach them also the cultural gaps that may imply. Just discussing about how was your day and not sounding, I don't know, just weird or something, like from very basic tips to really technically complex discussions. We get all the communication training. Then talking about BIM, we really focus on how to integrate again and through collaboration. It's not about the cloud itself, but how people are managing models and who is accountable of what. And again, this also falls into a more soft skills side, like how to respect others' spaces and not sneak into others' work or something. And then the third part that we train a lot internally is technical architecture, detailing how to coordinate effectively and how to transmit a possible solution for a window detail or for a curtain wall detail, and just have a constructive interaction, because sometimes our suggestion is not the best, and how to figure out what are the others people's suggestions and how to leverage on that and how to just build up from everyone's strengths.
Evelyn, you just gave us an idea, which is having a training on how to be the Switzerland of whatever, because it's really hard. I mean, for us and for the team to go and talk to a client and propose an option or a way of doing something that differs completely on how they're doing things. And it's harder to present an alternative option if that alternative option is different in every sense, in every area, in every stage of the project.
Right.
So I just remember about a very hard lesson we learned with Andy. I think there were 4 of us, so it was a while ago, in which I remember we were working with a client, one of our first clients. And after we completed a project, we shared some lessons learned on the way that they were doing things. The thing was, we presented those lessons learned in a very rigid and unempathetic, if you will, chart, showing how things were being done and what alternative we thought could be worth exploring. And our client got really mad. And at some point, we didn't understand what was happening. We were like, we're proposing good ideas and alternatives, but we weren't being smart enough on how those ideas were being proposed, and we weren't outlining the benefits of it and the collaboration that led us to propose those ideas, because there's no way we can propose something interesting if we haven't been very tightly collaborating with our clients. So I just remember about that lessons, because everything we do and everything we present to our clients and is really well crafted and cared, and emphasizes on the collaboration spirit and on the fact that nobody's wrong or right. We're just in the seek of a better solution and a way of better doing things. And if you see it from that point of view, it's a whole different mindset. So we're launching a new training.
Not only launching the new training, I almost feel like Slantis could launch a whole consulting practice on how to better collaborate and communicate within firms. irrespective like the technology implications that or technology applications that you guys bring to the table, you're training your people to go into very difficult situations and be that Switzerland. And I just know a lot of US firms that would benefit from that type of professional development at the corporate level in-house, frankly.
Yes.
So how do you ladies stay ahead of what's next? And how do you all continuously improve your processes then? Because obviously you took away some from lessons from that memory way back when there was just 4 of you, and you've evolved it. So how do you guys continue to, or how does Slantis continue to evolve its practice as it engages with more and more clients?
I would say, so first, I think that there's the right mindset. So we do have systems in place for making sure we're improving everything we do. But all of those systems, which are wikis or hot desk or channels or other things, draw on the company's mindset and the collective and individual responsibility of understanding what can improve others' process or project or whatever. I think that's very important. And then more on a operations level. So every time we close a project, we share lessons learned, we harvest those lessons learned, we make sure we archive those, we upgrade what needs to be upgraded. I'm talking very abstractly, but that happens on every cell with every team and throughout Slantis. So we make sure like that information, it's not only improved and harvested, but also flows throughout Slantis, through our newsletter, through our general meetings.
And I will add to what Mare was saying. We as founders do a lot of work of connecting and networking outside our own industry and learning from other industries, which is something that we are seeing that the US AEC lacks, because usually you interact with people around the AEC from possible clients, real estate developers, contractors, and like, what if you can talk to another tech founder or to someone in a random industry, like, I don't know, doing chips. There's a friend of Mare's that does gluten-free and has a plant, like a factory. And there's a lot to learn from that. So learning from other industries and learning from other, I'm talking from that to like Mare going to TechCrunch and understanding possible other advances or innovations that are happening in the tech world. So I would encourage everyone, and this has been one of our secrets on keeping up, is there's a lot of things that have been already tested and proven in other industries that ours have not. And you need to be talking to other people to learn what's going on with their industry and what their challenges are. And that's also a way of kind of seeing the future, because our industry has been a bit before in adopting specifically technology. So just going out there and connecting with people and understanding and learning how other industries work, I would say it's one of the secrets of being at the forefront of understanding what's coming up next. It's all about people.
So you both alluded to the fact that you didn't want to be a firm because you didn't believe it could have as much of an impact on the architecture industry as being a technology company that supports architecture firms. What is the big dream of Slantis? If that transformation were to happen in the industry, the one that you guys so desperately like want to see happen, what does that look like? What does an architecture future look like in that world?
So I would say that the ultimate impacted thing would be people and the end users of the buildings. And then we started out Slantis at a typical coffee shop conversation on how our profession was really, something was not adding up and something was really wrong about us staying long hours trying to crack things. And we've experienced firsthand how technology can really improve the quality of life of architects and ultimately impact on the buildings that we are designing, and again ultimately impact on the people that are using and operating those buildings. So if we can do just a glimpse of that and figure out how technology can speed up and make architects happier, a little bit less stress profession, then I think we kind of check the box. Again, I would say that we finish up from where we started. Like, technology is the huge game changer and biggest enabler. So that's what we want to accomplish, at least have a better quality of life for our profession, and that can translate into better design and better buildings in the end, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot about claiming back the architecture profession. So we're both licensed architect behind the covers. I think the impact will have to touch not only the architecture profession, but the built environment as a whole. The design of our cities, we're taking off space for good design, and you can tell by walking and looking around. And there's also, so we've always said we were going to revolutionize the industry. And at some point we said one project at a time. I think right now we're understanding how to move next and how to influence and shape the industry, not only through projects, maybe also through collaboration frameworks, and trying to generate substance, or at least trying to open a little bit more our practices and what do we do internally to collaborate better so other people can use it, like independently, if they're working with us or not. Because one project at a time, it would take too long.
It's funny because like literally one of my last questions is like, beyond technology and software solutions, what are other areas that the architecture industry can be disrupted? I feel like this whole conversation has been about all of the other areas that the architecture industry can be disrupted to help us drive technological innovation, which again is kind of a surprising conversation. And I guess I should have known that, having talked to the two of you before, but I was like, no, this is going to be a technology conversation.
Well, we like to say there's something, well, I repeat all the time, which is technology properly understood is any new and better way of doing things. So you don't need a computer. You just like to do things in a new and better way. And for that, you need to understand what you're doing and understand why another thing would be better. And you need everyone to be in that mood and align with that vibe. So it's a culture problem. And then another recent story came to mind, which is we were talking with Ale. He's an account executive at Slantis. So he's not an architect formally as a background. And we were in a meeting and he was like, oh, this is more of an engineer problem. And I thought it was a very complex architecture problem. And I think our mission also here is kind of to take off the idea of an architect doing a very quick and simple drawing towards to really understand how things work and how to put a building together, which is as complex as how to put a car together or a rocket together. So I think our mission has to do a little bit with that too.
Yes, totally.
So obviously you guys are based in Uruguay and most of your workforce is from Uruguay. And I wish we had more listeners in Uruguay, but I think the majority of them is coming from the US. One, is there any way that our US friends, like what is the best way for our US friends to learn, to be a part of, to support what you're doing at Slantis? Is there a way that the listeners can kind of be a part of your journey, short of hiring you to be a part of their company?
So we love connecting with people, as we were mentioning, from the most crazy connections to most obvious ones, or people that are in the industry that it would be natural to connect with us. We love to have, I'm quoting Mara here, but like substance conversations or conversations of substance, of really understanding what everyone's perspective of the industry is. I was reading yesterday on one of the books that I'm reading a concept really interesting that said that perception is different from perception is different from perspective. So perception is what you see and through your own eyes, but perspective is what you gain about the same topic talking to others. So you're able to see the exact same thing through other people's eyes. And that is really powerful because you have a bit more of understanding of the thing or problem or challenge that you're discussing about. So I would say that reach out to us. We'd love to connect and just understand what you're doing and what your lessons learned are, what you're trying to accomplish. And even if you're a middle manager or just junior designer or just out of school, what are your interests? Like every person, and we like to say this a lot, is like a Pandora box, and you can learn so many things from each person that you meet with. So we basically like to connect and just learn what you're doing and then figure out at some point if we can create some synergies. But at the beginning, it's just connecting and getting to know each other.
Yes, definitely encouraging people to join the conversation and create useful discussions around the topics we believe are important for our industry.
And then finally, what advice do you give to either people coming out of school or young leaders in the profession who share the desire for change that you have, but may not be in the best position to create change within their firms?
Maybe don't get frustrated first. And then maybe it's more of a wide thought than advice. But as technology evolves and as new generations come, the change will happen. And I think it would happen faster than we expect. And it would be a little bit more abrupt than what we were expecting, at least what I was expecting a couple of years ago. So my advice would be focus on becoming a subject matter expert and critically thinking, because that will last forever. Your ability to understand what you're doing or the industry or a specific project type will always beat whatever comes next. So focus on deeply understanding from a very critical point of view, foster thinking for yourself and deepen your knowledge no matter what technology will come or how hard change feels. The niche of the niche and understanding in depth never wears off.
No, I love what Mare said. And I would add on the same narrow what I was mentioning before, just get out there, explore, talk to people. You never know where ideas come from everywhere. So just don't be scared to go out there and talk to everyone. Just people that feel that are out of your reach, they aren't. Technology has also allowed us to connect in a much simpler way and easier way with people that before it seemed very difficult to connect with. So don't be scared and just reach out to people and let them know about what you think about stuff and just be curious and open. I think that would be my, I don't know if it's an advice, but just out of my experience, what has really worked, just getting out there and don't be scared to talk to people.
Yes, that's super important. And you always emphasize it, and I love it. And also, don't be afraid to mix and match. So we did it with architecture and technology, but I feel there's more mix and match right now than ever. And the more the world evolves, the more things you can do and things that weren't going to be together in your mind because you were forced to choose architecture or, I don't know, biotechnology. Maybe there is a way in which you can mix those two together. So always like complementary disciplines or mixing and matching things that don't necessarily go together may also be an interesting path. There's room for that today.
Hi, Disruptors. Thank you for joining us today on an episode of Practice Disrupted. If you like the content for today's show, you can find all of our past episodes over on practiceofarchitecture.com/podcast. Be a part of the conversation by joining me, our speakers, and other disruptors in our community at practiceofarchitecture.com/community. Our social media handle is Practice of Arch. That's Practice of ARCH. We'd love to hear from you, so feel free to drop us a DM and say hello. Tune in next week for a new conversation on change in the profession.